I woke up this morning and I'm reading and, all the congressional publications, Politico, Punchbowl, Axios. Here's what they said happened last night. I was very intrigued by it. This is after the censure of Al Green. You have Politico Playbook citing Axios that says there was a very unhappy House Democratic leadership meeting. They had a come to Jesus meeting with a dozen House lawmakers. Punchbowl, elucidating on that, said that this included Maxwell Frost, Jasmine Crockett, two very outspoken Democrats, and they used the word that they were berated for their behavior. How ordinary is it for leadership to berate members of their own party? And were you surprised by this?
I wasn't surprised. It is extraordinary, but they did make fools of themselves on the House floor. And everyone saw it, everyone in the country. It was a reminder to them why we won so decisively in this last election cycle and why they lost. And they're really a party in total disarray, as you see it on vivid display right now. They don't have an identified leader. They don't have any.
So that's true. They don't have a leader, but they're not making fools of themselves, at least not compared to Donald Trump, who gave an unhinged State of the Union address, lying his butt off about a whole host of issues, including immigration and Social Security fraud. So Mike Johnson is correct in diagnosing the problem with the Democrats. He just doesn't realize that the Republicans are doomed to suffer the same problem because they're lying and they're going to cut entitlements.
For where they're going. They don't have a platform that they can run on because it was repudiated overwhelmingly in the election. So they're sort of flailing about, and it blew up on the House floor, and I think they deeply regret it. At least some of them do. Others apparently didn't get the message of the election.
No, Al Green among them. He becomes the fourth House Democrat to be censured in the last 4 years. And Hakeem Jeffries, your counterpart on the other side of the aisle, had this to say about the censure.
The censure resolution put forth by extreme MAGA Republicans is not worth the paper that it was written on.
He says it's not worth the paper, and House Freedom Caucus members are asking to put forward a resolution to remove Al Green from his committee assignments. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the interesting thing is he was censured for disrupting the proceedings of the House. And while I was reading the censure that was voted in, by the way, by 10 House Democrats who joined Republicans in that, they disrupted the proceedings of the House. So there's some irony there. We have to keep decorum. We have to keep control of the proceedings because we're the greatest deliberative body in the world, and we need to act like it. And I think this went way over the line. By the way, these censures, this is not a normal thing. I mean, he was only the 29th member of the House to be censured in the entire history of the U.S. Congress. So it was above the pale. He's the first person to ever be removed from the floor during a presidential address. It was appropriate, and we've got to maintain control.
Emily's going to hop in here, but just a quick follow-up. What about his committee assignments? Do you think that's on the table?
Well, I talked to Freedom Caucus members and other Republicans who are deeply concerned about this. They say we have to restore control one way or the other. They need to be real consequences, and it's something we'll be looking at early next week.
Okay. So,
He totally ignored Al Green's point that Trump does not have a mandate to cut Medicaid. That bill that the Republicans just passed, the budget in the House, that cuts Medicaid by $880 billion. Trump supports it, so he thinks he has a mandate to cut Medicaid. Al Green, what he said was factually correct. It's easy to chastise the guy about decorum. Obviously, standing up and waving your cane at him is not proper decorum, but the point that he made still stands.
Speaker, it seems that there are some reasonable heads prevailing, right? We have Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow. She says, look, these Democrats are sick and tired of performative nonsense. We don't want to see our elected officials trying to be cute or clever, she says. So back to Tuesday night. Peggy Noonan, Democrat, esteemed WSJ opinion editor, wrote a thoughtful op-ed today where she said, look, I came to 3 conclusions after Tuesday. She said they're not serious people talking about her own party, these elected officials who refused to stand up, who refused to clap. 2, their job was to show they are an alternative to Mr. Trump, and instead they proved why he won. And then her third and most important, she said, they will continue to lose for a long time. And she talked about how to stand and cheer, to show support for these incredible Americans that were there that evening was to show love. And instead, she said, they brought the hate. So my question, to quote the Black Eyed Peas, which I got to see in concert 100 years ago, where's the love, Speaker? And do you think that Democrats will listen to these reasonable voices?
I think most of them won't. And you saw that by their vote. They voted against censuring Al Green. They're doubling down, tripling down on their failed policies and their message. And it does not resonate with the people. Peggy Noonan used to be a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. I mean, she's a pretty keen observer of politics and human nature. And what she's seen here is a trend that no one can deny, that the Democratic Party has left the American people. When I was a kid,
The Republican Party has left the American people. You're cutting Medicaid by $880 billion. Only 7% of Americans support cutting Medicaid. Very few Americans also support lowering taxes on the wealthy. Your bill is going to cut taxes on the top 5% and raise taxes on the bottom 95%. You think the bottom 95% of Americans are going to like that? You think that by raising taxes on them, it's actually you who is leaving the American people, Mike?
I grew up in Louisiana in the Deep South. There weren't many Republicans. I didn't know many, but that party left the people of my state and every other state over the years. And now they went through that woke progressive nonsense. They went so vigorous and aggressive. It's almost like the pendulum swung all the way to the left and it clicked, and now it's sort of moving back. And what President Trump represents, and our party by extension now, is a force that is moving that pendulum back to what President Trump says is common sense. And that was long overdue. And the people embrace it. And the polls verify that they're in favor of what we're doing, restoring common sense and our conservative principles, which I know that we can demonstrate are good for everyone. It will lead to human.
Run through the provisions in that budget bill. You will find almost none of them are popular, Mike. That is totally disingenuous. You might be able to point to some issues where Trump and the right have a majority of Americans behind them, a slim majority, but overall your economic policies are not popular. Most Americans in a blind survey actually found that they liked Kamala Harris's economic policies better than Trump's. 80% of Americans did. So no, this election wasn't so much about policy. It was about the mood of the country in terms of, oh, we don't like the incumbents. We don't feel good about Joe Biden. So Mike Johnson can pretend, oh, the Democrats lost because of stuff like what they did at the State of the Union. No, dude, no. There are reasons relating to the Democratic Party's failure that have to do with them losing the election, but this is not one of them. The way they act is not one of them. So keep lying, buddy. It's pretty embarrassing. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.